Okay, what is going on? Welcome back to the podcast. Hold on, let's bring this up. All right, what's up? Welcome back to the podcast. Listen, we're gonna jump right into it. First and foremost, I have a confession to make. I've been doing this all wrong. Um, you know, Obviously we know that life is like a box of chocolates. No, I'm kidding. Obviously we know that life is sort of an experiment. I feel like it's an experiment of sorts where we're all trying to get things right, and um, it comes to a point where you you fail, then you learn, you fail, then you learn, you fail, then you learn, right? So, what happened is this. Basically, what's going on, people? Welcome back to the podcast. I have a confession to make. I do not know what I'm doing. And it's weird because at a certain point in time, I feel like life was figured out. Like I had it figured out. This was back in like 2000, we'll say 2017, 18. This is like the pandemic area, like right before the pandemic area. And this is a time where I'm like running around like a chicken with its head cut off. At least that's what it felt like to me. And I am doing photography and videography, and I'm on TikTok, I'm on Instagram, I'm posting constantly. Um, and it was amazing. Like, I remember going to DC a couple of times, a few times. I remember driving up there just to get video content, as well as just to take pictures of different models and stuff, reaching out to them. Dave at the time, he was reaching out to them, and then we would book different models. We would go up and shoot. And like I said, at the time, it felt very hectic. It felt very um, chaotic, right? But I was having a lot of fun, and then it was so cool. I felt like I was that guy. You know what I mean? Like, I felt like people knew me as a photographer, as a creative, really, and it was great. The issue is that ever since then, and I won't say ever since then because that run kind of lasted from 2017 into the pandemic. For me, the pandemic was a great time, and I hate saying that sometimes because I feel for the people who lost people during that time. But for me, it was great. It was a time where all I had to do was wake up and create, and just sit in the house. And though it was scary because we didn't know what was going on, um, I was having fun, and I felt like I was doing what I'm supposed to do in life, period. And so, as time goes on, pandemic ends, and we're back to the bullshit, which is everyday living. And that kind of ended up, well, I'm there now, right? Like, I have a 9 to 5 job, which, I've always had a 9 to 5 of sorts. I've always had a job, but never really a 9 to 5. But right now I have a 9 to 5 job, and to be honest, though I love it, it gets in the way of my creativity as far as my autonomy. Let's say that it gets in the way of my autonomy. I can't just wake up and do the things that I want to do. I have to wake up and go to work, like so many people, right? And I'm not complaining. I'm really not. I'm just having this conversation because it's something that I think about often, and I'm sure that we all think about it, to be honest. I am sure that nobody likes waking up and going to their job. Well, I take that back because I'm sure there's some people that love it, but for the most part, I feel like most people just don't. They're not loving it. You know what I mean? I think that it's a means to an end, and I also think it's a rat race that we kind of get caught up into. But I digress. I won't go into that. The point is that pre-pandemic, pandemic, a little bit maybe after pandemic, a little post-pandemic, there was a time where I felt like I was doing the thing that I'm meant to do in the world, and that is creating. And not only that, but I feel like I had the autonomy to create what I wanted to create. Um, Fast forward to this point, I don't feel like I am. In fact, I feel like I have kind of retracted. No, I've kind of regressed at this point. I feel like I have gotten to a place where I don't know what I'm doing. Like, I can't figure it out, and it is the worst feeling in the world. Um, and I've tried to figure it out, and I think that's kind of the problem. We'll get into that in a second, but I've tried to figure it out, and I haven't been able to. And you know how you get into that like mode where you watch videos on YouTube and you're like you're trying to figure it out. Like, you're hearing people say, "Oh, you want to be successful? Here's what you need to do. Oh, you want to do this? Here's what you need to do. Oh, as a creative, here's what you need to do." And so I'm listening and I'm accumulating all these thoughts and ideas and opinions of other people, and it's just driving me further and further and further from where I think I am supposed to be. So if you're doing that, then I would suggest not doing it, because honestly, it doesn't really get you anywhere. So like I said, I feel like I got it wrong. I feel like I've gotten it wrong up until this point. I think I'm at a place now where I am beginning to get it right. Hopefully, I'm beginning to get it right, and hopefully, we won't have this conversation again in like another year or two. But I feel like it's action, right? It is taking action, and that's something that I'm not doing anymore. Like I said, during the pandemic era, um, I was doing things, and granted, I had the space to do them. My life has definitely become a little more nuanced at this point, a little more complicated, um, but I had the space to just do, and I think that is the missing ingredient, the secret sauce. Like, right now, I am thinking so much, and I think that thinking only makes you think more, right? It creates this anxiety of sorts where you get into this loop of I'm thinking, 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 not doing, which then like causes you not to believe that you can do, and then you think about why you feel that way, which then in turn create, like, it's, you see what I'm saying? It's like a circle instead of doing something. And I feel like when you do something, you build the belief to do it again, the belief in yourself to do it again, and then you do it again, and that just builds it again, and so it's a whole other circle. It's a new circle, and it's a way far better circle, right? Um, and I think that's where I'm at now. I think that now I realize I need to do more than I need to think. So that brings me to today. Um, Today, I had every intention of going to the gym, which I did, getting home and starting on content creation, which I didn't do. I instead watched Elsbeth and fell asleep. But it's okay, because here we are now. I woke up and a friend of mine sent me some videos. Sent me a couple of sent me a couple of videos on YouTube again, right? I'm back to watching the videos that I was just talking about. But she sent me these videos. Shout out to Ariel. And one video was about like money, and then one video was about, and as far as about money, like accruing wealth. And then the other video was about basically procrastination. And if you know me, that is a big thing for me. I am a huge procrastinator, or I've been a huge procrastinator. But as I was listening to these videos, it hit me that, I have two choices, right? Like, at this point in my life. And those choices are, I can continue doing the thing that I'm doing, which lands me in the same rut that I'm in, or I can begin to get out of that rut by doing something else. So I chose the latter. I have been saying that I was going to do this podcast episode, or a podcast episode, for probably the last 3 weeks or so, since I released the last podcast episode, and I don't know when that was, but I would venture to say that it's been about 3 or 4 weeks or so, and I just haven't. I haven't done it. I haven't released it. I haven't done it, so I couldn't release it. But I haven't done it. Even with music, it's the same thing, right? Like, I have said many times that 2024 was gonna be a big music release year for me, and I don't know that I think I may have released 2 songs this year, two or three songs. Yeah. And it may be a little bit more. I feel like, because I know I released Don Julio Jones, I know Timeless, Fall Apart, and Angel. I just don't know if they were this year. But either way, that is far less than what I had planned. I had planned to release, like, I think 8 or 9 songs this year, and it just didn't work. It's good to have a plan. Well, we'll get into that in a second, but it just didn't work out that way. So I'm watching this video, and like I said, I chose the latter choice, and so I got up and I said, okay, I'm going to record this episode. I don't know what it's about. I did not outline it. I didn't do anything, and it's very difficult to do that with a one-person podcast. But here I am. I am here in the studio recording this podcast. Oh, you probably can hear my dog back there shaking and whatnot. I feel like that little shake thing that dogs do has to have a name. So if anybody knows, let me know. But I decided to do the podcast, and here I am without a plan, just doing it. And it feels a little weird, to be honest. It feels like I can feel the anxiety. A part of the anxiety has gone away, right? Which is the anxiety of doing something or before doing it. Which, since I'm doing it, I no longer feel that. But the thing that I feel now is I have to release it, and that's a whole different type of anxiety that I feel, but we won't get into it. All in all, though, I'm glad I'm doing it. Super glad I'm doing it. Because I feel like it may be the beginning of getting out of that rut. I also know, though, that I have kind of gotten out of this rut before, halfway, and then jumped right back into it. So we'll see. I'm trying to. Well, anyway, here's the idea, though. If you find yourself in the rut that I find myself in, as far as like this procrastination loop, I'm gonna give you a couple of tips right now. And I may not be like the professional at this. I'm not the professional at this because I myself am still in this rut. But here's what I'm finding that works. Number one, figure out why you're procrastinating, I guess, essentially. Are you avoiding the anxiety? Are you avoiding the judgment? Are you avoiding rejection? What are you avoiding? There's something that you're avoiding. For me, I think that I avoid the rejection, the judgment heavily. I think that for me, it is important to be accepted, and I never want to put myself in a position where I won't be. And being vulnerable in a podcast opens yourself up to rejection and judgment, and that's scary. So figure out what it is that you're trying to avoid, what emotion you're trying to avoid. And the second thing, after you identify that emotion, is realize it's kind of fake. I mean, yes, it's a very real emotion, right? But one thing that I've learned to do is to ask myself, what happens if that's true? You alright? Dog's like choking or something. One thing that I've realized is to ask myself, one thing that I've realized to ask myself is, what happens if that's real? So, ask yourself, if it's rejection, what happens if I do this podcast or do whatever you're doing, and somebody comments and they're like, you're trash, it's horrible, and they reject you? Truly ask yourself, what happens? For me, if I'm not accepted and somebody says, hey, you're trash, and I hate that, yeah, it hurts a little bit at first, but so what? Like, truly, so what? It doesn't matter in the grand scheme of things. And it didn't kill me, right? Um, and to be honest, it now allows me to talk about something else on a podcast. So I win. So it's not really a real issue, right? It's just a thought. It's just anxiety. It's worry for something that probably doesn't matter, and it's also worry for something that may not happen. So identify the issue, identify the emotion, and then ask yourself, what happens if it's real? If you're not gonna die, then you're okay, and you should probably still do it. Now, if you're gonna die, then hey, bro, don't do it. All right. The other thing that I'm realizing is, and hopefully this helps you, is that you can't think your way out of thinking. Like I said, a lot of the times I'm sitting here and just revolving thoughts are going through my head, and that just makes me procrastinate more. This idea is that you just need to get up and do something, because doing something builds belief, and when you build belief in your ability and what you can do, that just allows you to do more, and then it builds belief that allows you to do more, and it builds belief. You see where I'm going with that? So you need to create a new circle, create a new loop that you get stuck in, and we'll call it the belief loop. Get stuck in the belief loop. Um, and at that point, I think the biggest thing for me, or one of the biggest things for me right now, is consistency. Definitely a check. Excuse me. Whoa, sneeze. And it was crazy is my dog sneezed as I sneezed, like before I sneezed. It was wild. But anyway, consistency, and that's something that is really difficult for me, or is a challenge for me. I'm trying to watch what I say these days, but it has been a challenge for me. What I'm finding is that if I create a path of least resistance, my consistency, or the odds or the chance of me being consistent, are a lot better. So what I would do, what I would say is, I'd encourage you to find something, a path that allows you to be as consistent as possible. For me, it's like this. If I want a podcast, instead of like lifting this stuff up, putting it back after every episode, I just leave it here. So much of my time has been in an effort to create this like clean studio space. And to be honest, creativity isn't clean for me, at least. So now I leave everything here, and when I need to make a podcast, I have to just sit down. That's all I have to do. Just sit down, press two buttons, and talk. Versus everything being, put up and everything being neat, and then I have to get out this little stand. I have to get the little podcast thing out, the microphone. I have to connect all the wires. I have to set up a tripod, a camera. I have to set up a light stand, the weight that's on there. Like, it's so much to do versus just sitting down and pressing two buttons. So try to make everything easy for yourself if consistency is an issue. And I am no professional at this. I am still learning just like everybody else. And obviously you guys know that because I'm not pretty consistent on, the podcast. But I'm gonna be. Um, and that brings me to my final thing. My final thing is this. Believe in yourself enough to start somewhere. Just start today. Do something, bro. I kind of just said it when I said just do it, but that is the biggest thing. Is just start somewhere. Um, like I said, for me, it's this podcast episode, and I hope that it kind of reinforces the belief that I need to continue doing those things. And I think if you do it, it will reinforce, the belief that you need to continue doing the things that you need to do. So that's my little short blurb for the day. New podcast episodes are coming soon, by the way, and they're going to be new and different, and I'm really excited about it. I wanted to find a way to make the podcast more interesting, and I really wanted to have a podcast with two people, and sometimes it's a little difficult to do that, especially because I record here at my house, at my home studio, and I don't want everybody in my house. So I've come up with an idea. I've come up with a way that I think is going to work really well for the podcast. I've also decided to rebrand the podcast, so new name for the podcast coming soon. And I'm really excited about it, man. I'm very excited about it, and I hope that you guys are. I know you guys are gonna enjoy it. Um, and if you don't, it's probably not gonna kill me, so it's okay. Um, Other than that, new music coming as well. I just sent new music off to be mixed and mastered, and so I'm excited about that. Um, and yeah, man, I want to hit the ground running for 2025, and I'm looking forward to it. I think that every year is a challenge, and every year is new. So this year for me, 2025, is all about conquering myself, and not comparing myself. So conquer, not comparing. And yeah, I'm just very excited. So I hope that you guys stay tuned. I hope that you guys kind of join me on this journey, and I hope that you guys are able to conquer yourselves in 2025 as well. I really want everybody to win this year. I think it's going to be great. So yeah, man, thank you for joining me, and I'll see you in the winner circle, my boy. Yeah.